Hello, welcome. We made it. It's the final gun room, the last pod of the season, and we're breathing a sigh of relief. It depends where you are, doesn't it? Really, where you are in the table. With me again is Mitch. How are you, Mitch?
I'm good. It's good to be back.
Finished all your jet setting and stuff, you student types. You got the life of it.
Just doing some nice globe trotting in my time in Europe. So yeah.
Right, and with me down here, for no particular reason, it's just the order it pops up, is Paul Mc Parlan. He is a lifelong Toffee and the author of The Forgotten Champions, which covers Everton's finest season from 1986 to 87. Paul, give us a little snapshot of that book so we can push it. We'll give it a good old shove.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I mean, basically, it was Everton's ninth and last title, and it's kind of gone under the radar in most people's memories because the 84-85 team kind of get all the accolades, and the 86-87 ones kind of doesn't quite get the same recognition for a number of factors. Maybe lack of TV coverage. I think Everton's final game when we lifted the league title at Norwich City merited 1 minute 15 seconds coverage on national news. There were no TV highlights. There are no DVDs of that game. And prior to that season, at the end of 85-86, we'd blown the double to our dreaded rivals across Stanley Park. We'd lost our star striker, Gary Lineker, to move to Barcelona. We started the season missing Neville Southall, Peter Reid, Paul Bracewell. We also missed Pat van den Houw. And the team looked absolutely decimated, and there seemed to be no way that we could, mount a challenge for the title that season. But Howard Kendall probably did his best managerial job ever, made some really astute signings, and the injuries continued to plague us throughout the season. But eventually, we won the league, we won it by 9 points, and sadly, it's probably the last title we will ever see at Goodison Park.
Oh, don't be such a pessimist. That's great. Thanks very much. Well, we hope you go out and buy that. There's various places you can buy it. Obviously, look it up on Amazon. Put it in your Google search bar and it'll come up. Right. Well, it's been a season, hasn't it? Hey, it's had a bit of drama. It's had a bit of everything. It's been absolutely fascinating, depending on where you are in the league, obviously, and what your points total is. But it's been absolutely riveting. Even if you're at the wrong end of the table. Mitch, what have you made of this? Have you been following it as much as you've been following Arsenal? You know, this 1-2 at the top, then the race for 3 and 4, and then you've got this massive sort of dogfight down the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the first Premier League season in recent memory to have like a lot of things riding on the final game of the season, where like you're checking the scores and you're checking multiple scores. There's a lot of different games that were affecting a lot of different things. Hell, even like United could have, or if West Ham had won, United would have been dropped to the Conference League. Like stuff like that. Like obviously the title came down the last day.
Can I just interject and say that would have been wonderful?
I would have loved that. That would have been great. But West Ham didn't get it done, unfortunately. But yeah, first season in recent memory that so much has been riding on the last day. So I mean, really exciting as a Premier League fan. Like it's a good direction the league's going in. I mean, the entire league's getting more and more competitive, which as a fan of the league is good, but as a fan of Arsenal is bad. So yeah, very, very exciting stuff.
Oh, what have you made of Everton's misfortunes of late? We'll dig a bit deeper, and obviously we'll talk about the match. But it's been a bit of a. You must have been holding on to the back of your trousers, mustn't you? Most of this last couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. It's been a totally dismal season from start to finish. I can't remember a season I've enjoyed least for a long, long time. From the disastrous appointment of the fat Spanish waiter for taking charge of the club in August, to to the calamitous away record, to the bizarre decisions by the owner, Mr. Mashiri, to the millions we squandered on players who suddenly failed to perform, to selling our best players like James Rodriguez and Luca Digne, and then suddenly finding ourselves at the end of January appointing a new manager with 2 days to go before the end of the transfer deadline. It really did not look good. When we lost 3-2 to Burnley, I really felt that was the key game that we were going to go down. But thankfully, we kind of pulled it back together again. And I never thought to say this, but the much behind Alex Iwobi actually had a really good number of performances under Frank Lampard, and actually played his part in turning the season around. So I take back all my previous criticism of Mr. Iwobi, because he has actually delivered towards the end of the season. But yeah, it's been dismal from start to finish. I would have loved to be in Arsenal's place challenging for a Champions League position, but I think those days are a long way behind us at the moment. And certainly during the summer, there's going to have to be some serious discussions about where we go to as a club. We have to move to the new stadium in 2.5 seasons' time, still lined up and ready to go ahead. So it's going to be a fascinating time that goes over the summer to see. We've got loads of deadwood to get off the wage bill. Hopefully we can bring some new signings in. And as long as Mr. Moshiri doesn't do anything too crazy with his impetuous decisions or listening to football agents too much, we just might be aiming for mid-table security.
Well, that will be good. You can't go through another season of that, can you? You'll be down to your elbows, never mind the bottom of your nails. Let's just try and sum up our seasons, fellas. Let's come to Mitch first. What was good about it? What was bad about it for you, Mitch? Where did we hit target and then miss?
Well, I mean, like, the obvious elephant in the room is that it's disappointing to have missed out on top 4, given the position that we were in for it. That being said, still a very successful season. There's very clear progress made. Anyone bar John can see the progress that Arsenal has made this season, and the progress Arteta has made, and all of these young talents that we've brought in. So I think I'm very, very hopeful for the future. The Europa League's not a bad thing at all. Like, we have a very, very real chance of winning that competition next season. And if we did, it'd be absolutely awesome. So I think there's a lot of really great things to take away from this Arsenal season. Obviously there's some cons as well. Obviously losing out to top 4, especially at Tottenham, hurts a lot and isn't great. But far from an unsuccessful season despite that.
Paul, we've touched on it basically, your season. You weren't doing too badly, were you, at one stage, if memory serves me rightly? Then all of a sudden the wheels came off. What was the major change? Was it the fat waiter, as you say, Rafa?
Well, yeah, I mean, we started off the first 2 games quite well. Then we kind of got 1 or 2 injuries, and then the team kind of never really recovered from that, Tom. The problem always was that we'd appointed a manager who the fans didn't want. Now, most Blues kind of got behind him because we had no choice. But it was always going to be the situation that when results started to
it was a very strange decision, Paul, for anyone who was outside Liverpool, sort of thinking, hold on, he ran Liverpool and now he's going to you.
Well, it just seemed to us like a total tone-deaf reaction from the owner, that he went against the wishes of probably most of his own board and all the fans he must liaise with, who must have told him that this is only going to end in tears. And I think once the form starts to decline, once the players start to respond, you just felt that the atmosphere at Goodison really was quite venomous at times. And you can't have a situation where at the end of every game, your own manager is too scared to come out and clap the fans because you'd get pilloried and booed for it. It just doesn't make for progress in any sense whatsoever. So it was a calamitous, ill-timed, ill-judged decision by Mr. Moshiri to appoint Benitez as manager. Benitez's style of football, his way of playing, is outdated. It would be like us bringing back George Graham to be a manager. His football was that much behind the times. And I think as well, sadly, for me and for most Blues, the key game was always the derby match at Goodison, first week in December, and we got absolutely played off the park. It was 4-1 to Liverpool. It could have been 10-1. We were so outclassed, it was embarrassing. And you just knew that day we were gone. We were going down. There was no way forward for the club. And the frustrating thing was that He should have gone at the end of that game. That was the time to get rid of him, get a new man in for the 1st of January, and give them the whole transfer window to bring some players in and implement his position, his thoughts, his strategy, his tactics. But we didn't do that. We clung on. I think that Micheli came out with some ridiculous statement like saying results will get better in the second half of the season, and we had a few injuries. It was also rubbish. We knew that time. We just weren't going to get better. The team was on precipitous decline. The fans are telling us the manager, the players didn't want to play for them. It was only going to end in tears. And why it took Mr. Micheli so long, I know he had connections with Arsenal as well, Mr. Micheli, doesn't he? I know why it took him so long to come to the decision, I have no idea. And you had the bizarre thing where he was trying to appoint the Portuguese guy, Pereira, who then rang up Sky Sports to almost give himself an interview for the job to try and convince people he was the man for the job. And he just thought, what is this club coming to? Is this how low we've sunk at the moment? So in the end, Lampard was the best choice from those available. He would have been the best choice to appoint him in August, not January, but we are where we are. He's kept us up, so he's achieved his main target. Let's see where we go to from here.
I think this is an interesting point, Mitch, because, going through the season this season, we've had all the fans sort of banging this drum about we should get this, we should get that. We're entitled to it almost. No one's entitled to anything. You've got to earn it. You've got to build the right foundations and stuff. You've got Manchester United. I mean, crumbs, they're in a mess. You've got Everton. They've spent, what, £1 billion? United must have spent around that as well. Mitch, let's address this with the fans from an Arsenal's perspective. You don't get entitled to anything. You've got to earn it. And we're on the road.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's no easy matches in the Premier League, and there's reason that the game isn't played on paper. If you'd asked me at the beginning of the season, I didn't think top 4 was anything realistic. Not necessarily because of where we were, but because of how on paper United, Chelsea, City, and Liverpool were miles ahead of everyone else in the Premier League. Like all of those teams improved a lot off of pretty good squads to begin with on paper, and there was no reason to think that any other team other than those 4 would be competing for the top 4 in the Premier League. And in the same respect, on the opposite end, I predicted Everton to finish 11th this season. That didn't happen. You can look at the talent that a team has on paper, but if something's not right, like the manager's not right, the team's not coming together in some way, or you have all these stars like Man United, but you bought all of these players that can't function together. Like you have 5 players that you need to play but can't play together. That works on paper. It works in FIFA, but it doesn't work when you're putting them out on an actual lineup. There's nothing you can't take anything for sure. I mean, there's a reason that Arsenal fans had just a little bit of hope that maybe, just maybe, Norwich City could beat Spurs this weekend. That didn't happen, obviously. It was rarely gonna, like, if there's 100 timelines, it happened in one. Like it's
yeah, I wasn't one of those that went down the bookies.
Tiny bit of hope. And yeah, so there's nothing for sure in the Premier League.
This is also a little bit of a pop the balloon of this theory for fans that you can spend your way to a Premiership title, because with the money that's been spent, and we use United because we're going to leave you alone for a minute, Paul.
Thank you.
You've had enough stress, mate. But spending these huge amounts, and now you've got Newcastle, but they seem to be a different kettle of fish. Eddie Howe's gone in there. He's starting to work his little magic. I call him Lazarus. He's just made them rise, hasn't he? He's really doing his stuff. But it is an object lesson to people out there that even if you throw money at a football team, it won't necessarily work. We're not in the days where Blackburn bought the title. We're not there by a long shot. Right, let's get on with this match, and then we'll get back to all the serious stuff. We'll cover the FFP problems with Everton, because there was a nice little press release on Sky over the weekend. So we'll go to the match. Where's my glasses? Yeah, you can tell it's It's proper recording. We won't cut this out. We'll leave that in. We like it. So it was 4-2-3-1. It was Aaron Ramsdale, Cedric Holding was back from suspension, Gabriel, Nuno Tavares, Mohamed El Neni, Granit Xhaka, Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard, Gabriel Martinelli, and Eddie Nketiah. No major shocks in there for us, Mitch, was there?
I think the biggest like kind of surprises were like Ben White and Tomiyasu's absences. I think it's just like clear that they weren't 100% at Newcastle last week. So those are the biggest surprises. I mean, I was at the game, so like when the lineup came out, my phone couldn't load the lineup. So I was just like looking at like just the tweet where it was like 3 players that I knew were in the lineup, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I have a decent idea. And I found out for sure who the lineup was when I saw the team walk out. So
it's one of those ones where approaching this game, Arsenal were obviously licking their wounds from the recent losses, and Everton had already done their stuff, hadn't they? They had nothing more to gain really, but it was like, you know, pride and trying to support the fans and stuff. How did you feel about going into this game, Paul?
Incredibly relaxed, Tom, for the first time all season. I mean,
I can imagine.
I mean, the nightmare scenario for most Everton fans was having to go to the Emirates, having to get a result given our appalling record there during the Premier League years. And I don't think anybody would have fancied us to have gone there and got a point to have stayed up. Now, as it turned out, anyway, we even if we'd lost to Crystal Palace, we had enough points to stay up by the virtue of Burnley losing. So almost by default, we would have stayed up. But yeah, it was good to be in a situation where we did need to win. And as you probably heard at the game, you know, the biggest cheer of the day was when Man City went 3-2 up, because that lifted the spirits of the travelling Blues considerably and gave us an enormous amount of pleasure in the circumstances of what's been this difficult season. Because you can only imagine what it's been like in this city when there's been the possibility of us going down and that lot winning the quadruple. It has been absolutely unbearable. So to get that out of the way, to get us to stay up was delightful for our support. For Herr Klopp to blow the league title was a great feeling for us as well. And now the way things over the season kind of even themselves out, I've never quite truly believed this, but there was an incident when we played Man City in February when Rodri clearly handled the ball in the penalty area. VAR decided it wasn't a clear and obvious handball and we didn't get a penalty. Of course, if we'd been given that penalty and we'd scored from it, then Liverpool would have won the league and not Man City. So things kind of had a strange way of even balancing out over the season. So that actually went in our favour in the end. But yeah, there was nothing to play for from Everton's point of view yesterday. It would have been nice to have had a decent performance. And I think that a guy called Van der Beek playing for us, who allegedly we brought in a loan from Manchester United a few months ago. So it was good to see him in a blue shirt as well. But yeah, it's the result didn't matter. I'm glad it didn't matter, and it would have been nice to finish the season on a high. But you know, the important thing was we didn't go down. We managed to stay up, and you know, alongside Arsenal, we maintained that proud record of the longest continuous membership in the top division.
Yeah, you have, haven't you?
Yeah.
Been there for, what is it, 1950 something?
1954, 69 seasons.
Yeah, amazing.
And of course, if we had lost that record, you know who would have taken over from us? Liverpool.
Well, I was reading somewhere as well. I was trying to dig it up on the phone, but I think it was every time we played you, the last 17 games of the season, we haven't lost. So you were really up against it. If you didn't get that result, you were bang in trouble. Let's get to the game. What did we make, Mitch, of the Iwobi handball in the 27th minute? It seemed to go on for ages. There was a lot of hooing and hawing yet again. What's your view?
Yeah, I didn't have like a great angle of it in the stadium, but like, you know, oftentimes you can tell with those things, like just based off of reaction from fans that have better views, and just based off Martinelli's reaction to immediately run over to the ref. Like, it's like, okay, that probably was something. but then play kept continuing for a while to where you're like, oh, I guess not. And then the ball finally goes out, and then we get the VAR thing on the screen, and we're like, oh, okay, great. So yeah, I mean, clear handball. I don't think there's any argument on either side. I haven't really seen anything otherwise. He like kind of goes out and kind of extends himself, which is, you know, clear sign of a handball. Is if you're making yourself bigger, that's typically a pretty easy sign. Kind of like the Rodri one for Man City. Which, speaking of that, it was very funny watching Everton fans being like, "Oh, you know, if people make mistakes, it's all right. It's all good. You're a human. It's good. It's all good."
There was no mistake with that penalty, was there? Martinelli was he seemed really pumped up for this game. Martinelli, he was on fire. He all business.
Yeah, for sure. Really nice finish by him.
Yeah, and then we got the what did we have after that? Xhaka and Dele Alli had a bit of handbags at the old corner post. Paul, what do you make of Dele Alli? Obviously, we don't like him. He's ex-Tottenham, so we're glad he went somewhere else. We wouldn't have had him, probably to serve the drinks at half-time or something. But how are you finding him?
Yeah, I think there's kind of mixed feelings with Dele Alli from the Everton perspective. I think initially, you know, in terms of him signing just for the transfer window, I think we're quite pleased that we bought what seems to be quite a decent player to come into the team. But he's hardly featured. He's hardly started any games. And the first 3 or 4 appearances, he tends to be brought on with 10 minutes to go when we're chasing the game. He'd like bottle out of a few 50-50 tackles. The crowd were getting his back. And quite clearly, that's not his game. You know, he needs to have more time. He needs to, to develop the skills on the ball to spray passes around. The most important contribution he's made this season was a half-time against Crystal Palace, because Andre Gomez had the most abysmal first half I've seen from a person on blue shirt for a long time. So when Ali came on for the second half, what he brought to the team was some sort of calmness, confidence on the ball, but most importantly, the ability to find space, pick out a pass, and then be in position to receive the pass and just link the midfield with the attack. And we were a far more effective side with Ali in the team when he came on for the second half. For some reason, there's still question marks over his match fitness, which is bizarre since he's been with us the best part of 5 months now. So what he's doing in training, I have no idea. And I suppose realistically, if we're going to get the best out of him, because he still has potential, though he quite clearly has not fulfilled that for the past 2 or 3 seasons. If he can get back to the player he was at Tottenham 2 or 3 seasons ago, then we might have a good deal. If it turns out that his best days were left behind and when he's wearing a white shirt, then quite clearly we haven't. But I think the jury's still out at the moment, as to some extent the jury is still out on what Frank Lampard might be able to do for the team at the start of next season. So I think the bigger question would be whether we needed to bring in another midfielder at the end of the transfer window, or whether we would have been better off bringing in 2 maybe centre-backs, because the centre of our defence has been a weak point most of the second half of the season. And sometimes, I think, as shown in the Brentford game, we'll left with just 1 centre-back available to pick to play in the team. So whether that was the right position to be enforced or not, I'm not quite sure.
Mitch.
Speaking of the Dele Alli stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about Dele Alli. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, like in the stadium, we were like booing the shit out of him every single time he got the ball. And like when he and Xhaka were kind of getting into it on that corner, I mean, we were just like loving it as fans. Anytime I had a really, really good seat. I was like first row and like right by Frank Lampard. So anytime Dele was over there, you know, people were just yelling at him. But when Van de Beek was coming on at the end of the first half, he was getting ready and someone yelled, "Hey Frank, is he coming on for Dele?" And Frank like turned and just went like, "Nah." Like, and I have to imagine that like level of like wanting to like interact with away fans is probably comes from being safe, because I imagine if this game had more stakes for you guys, I can't imagine Frank Lampard would be like listening in to like shit that fans are yelling at him and then laughing when he finds it funny. Like I can't imagine that would be the actual attitude he has. But it was very funny. Anytime Dele Alli was on the ball, everyone was just booing the shit out of him. When he came off, everyone was booing so much to where everyone got too carried away to where when Eddie came off, we were still booing Dele Alli.
I think the thing was when he was at Tottenham, they just couldn't find a way to use him, could they? They had pretty much a good balance of players, and it seemed he was surplus to requirements. I think if he doesn't crack it next season, you're going to have to fly him off somewhere. But I think there is a player in there, even though I hate saying it. I'll probably die of some sort of toxic poison and bite my own tongue. But right, let's move on to the next goal. Sorry, Mitch, what were you going to say?
It's a weird deal, right? Like it's like a 2-year and then like an obligation to buy, right? It's like something really strange, right?
It's a structured deal, Mitch. So initially, we don't make any payments until he's made 12 first team appearances, and then that generates the first payment, generates the second payment after made 40 appearances. So it's appearance related. I think it's because of Everton's financial difficulties, which the Premier League is kind of debating at the moment. I think the deal had to be structured because basically we didn't have the money to actually buy him, and I think Tottenham were quite glad to get him off the wage bill because I'm assuming he was one of their high earners as well. So yeah, it's a strange deal, and I suppose from an Everton perspective, if he were to leave in the summer, we haven't lost out on the deal because so far he hasn't cost us a penny.
Well, I mean, that's not bad, is it? It's not too bad at all. Not too shabby. None too shabby. Right, let's go on to the Nketiah goal. 31 minutes. Great reactions. Proper little fox in the box there, wasn't it? Martinelli did the flick on. Is that his final goal for us, do you think, Mitch?
I really, really hope not. Like he has grown so much into like such a really, really talented, well-rounded striker. Like I'm so excited about like where he can go. Because he for so long seemed like a very one-dimensional fox in the box kind of player, like really, really good at scoring within the 6-yard box. And now he's just like so much more versatile, checking in, dropping deep, running into the channels, swapping wings. Like he's a really, really versatile player. His high press is fantastic. He's so disruptive. He's really, really good at pressing. I really hope it was not his last Arsenal goal, because he's really talented, and it makes our summer to-do list a lot easier if we hold on to someone like him, because he'll get game time next year if he stays with us. I think that's almost a guarantee if like we only sign one striker and keep him. It's not going to be the same situation as it was before, because he's proven himself. He proved himself in preseason. Appearances earlier on. He played really well in the earlier Everton match this season. He did miss a shot at the end of the match, but other than that, like his just become a really, really well-rounded player. When all the players were doing the like around like thanking the fans at the end of the game, me and the guy next with me were yelling for him, stay here, and he smiled. So take that how you will. I'm bringing in some great information here, like some great journalism.
Straight off the terraces. The thing is that basically for a 22-year-old, I think he's got to. There's something. What's that in the background? Who's watching Coronation Street? What is it?
So it was just something on the phone. Sorry, Tom. It's okay.
All right, that's okay. Don't worry. I've had that regularly. I was doing. It was a sports psychotherapist, and the phone went off, and it sounded like an ice cream truck. And I just asked her to get me a Mr. Whippy. Where were we? Talking about Nketiah, 22 years of age. I don't think he's in a position where he hasn't proven him. He's proven himself to a degree, but not at the next level. So he has to be patient. I think he's got a good career in front of him. If he goes to Palace, who knows what will happen, because they're sniffing around left, right, and centre.
He bags like 15 goals next season. I think like minimum wherever he goes. Like if he gets solid game time, I think he bags 15 minimum.
But we've got to have, if you're going into the Europa League and you want to win it, you've got to have a top flight striker as well, haven't you?
Well, main striker throughout the majority of the season, didn't even score 5 goals this season in the league. So, I mean, 15.
Let's not talk
quite
about that one again. Stunk the place out. Right, let's put a smile on your face then, Paul. Danny van der Beek, 45 plus 3. It was a bit of a gift, that, wasn't it? Talk us through it, Paul. What did you make of it? I bet you were cheering. The comeback's on.
Well, I never for one moment thought the comeback was on playing away against Arsenal, because that just doesn't happen to us. But yeah, it was a good chance. It was
the way we defend, Paul, you could have had a chance.
Well, I think that I think you're right to raise question marks about the solidity of the Arsenal defence there, because certainly compared to the George Graham days, that was pretty lacklustre defending, I have to say. I mean, and the move starts on the right, the cross came into the penalty area. It seemed as though there were like 2 or 3 Everton players completely unmarked, and the ball kind of ends up with Donny van der Beek on the edge of the 6-yard box. Like, he's got a tapping really, he's one he couldn't miss. So yeah, it was frustrating that in his last game for Everton, he scores his only goal for Everton before he goes back to Manchester United, and he's someone who I've had reservation about his commitment to the club since he joined, and I think you look back at our transfer activity in January, it was probably the worst of any team in the Premier League. We brought in El Ghazi from Aston Villa, who I think, apart from putting the cat out on
what was that, Benghazi?
Yeah, he'd have been a better side, to be honest. Yeah, but El Ghazi, I mean, no one knows why he came, or the rumour was he was part of a make-weight up for the deal to ensure that Villa could buy Luca Digne, so that could well be true. And then we brought in Patterson, who's been injured for since he joined the club. We brought in Dele Alli, who's hardly plays. We did some, and Van der Beek, who's also hardly plays. So we did some strange business in January. But yeah, it was good to see it go. But if this game had something riding on it, then yeah, I'd have been out in the seat screaming the TV screen, come on, we can do this. But the game had nothing riding on it. So yeah, I was quite relaxed about the whole thing, knowing that, given the team we put out, we weren't going to get anything from the match.
Mind you, the game prior to that, the previous game, was a real corker, wasn't it? It was an absolute classic. I love it when a game seesaws, and there's been quite a few of those games. Mitch, Donny van der Beek, going back to Man United, I don't think he was probably used very well, was he there? He had to go somewhere, get some time.
He doesn't seem to have been utilized anywhere other than Ajax since he left. I mean, he was a really, really talented player at Ajax. I was kind of mad when United signed him. Like, Arsenal kind of need a midfielder. They got him for 30 million. It's a talented player. I think it's another example of kind of what I was saying earlier with Manchester United, of buying players that they don't need or don't really fit. They've done that a lot. They've had a lot of different signings that don't really fit in what they're trying to do, don't play well with their players. Like, they didn't need another 10 or like an advanced 8 when they already had Bruno Fernandes and they already had Pogba. So it's a weird signing for them. We'll see what he does under Ten Hag, because he's played under him before, so could be looking up, but I don't know. He seems to not be handled anywhere so far.
While we're talking Everton and Arsenal, let's bring these two lines together. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, big questions about him. He's had 2 assists in the last 8 games, and before that, he probably had about 5 in about 100. Would you be sorry to let him go, Paul?
Yes, I'd be devastated if he went. The poor guy, he's been playing through injury most of the season, and you can see the difference he made to our efforts to stay up when he came back to the side for the last 2 or 3 games. He scored in 2 of the last 3 games, but you look at that headed goal he scored against Crystal Palace. It was reminiscent of Andy Gray in the early to mid-80s. It was a fantastic header. And with Calvert-Lewin, the difference in our last 2 or 3 home games was he could hold the ball up. He's great at keeping possession. He's brilliant at bringing other players into the picture. He very, very surrenders possession, and he torments defences. He'd be a brilliant signing for Arsenal. I'd be devastated if he joined you. I think he'd be a perfect addition to your squad. He's the right age. He's got the experience, and he made a good start this season. I think he scored in the first 3 games for Everton.
Yeah, he was good early on, wasn't he?
But since then, he's suffered a series of niggling injuries. There's always a feeling that the fat waiter brought him back too soon because he was desperate to try and salvage the season. And I think as well that, he was getting a bit of stick from the crowd when he first came back. Some people accused him of not trying, but the poor guy wasn't fit. He was going through the pain barrier every game, but now he's back to full fitness. I think Calvert-Lewin, I think there's a real dearth of young English strikers at the moment who can regularly score goals at the top level. He is in that category, and I think when you look at some of the fees being paid for other non-scoring forwards, I think Calvert-Lewin will be devastated to see him go. I hope he doesn't go, but he'd be a superb signing for Arsenal or any other team challenging for Europe.
Mitch, good fit for you?
Yeah, I think he'd be a great fit. Really, really good player. The biggest worry for me is the price. I would have been jumping all over it if Everton got relegated, because that price would have been greatly cut.
Steady, think about guests down here. Think about your guests.
If Everton got relegated, DCL would be way cheaper. I fear that Everton will put him at like a 70, 80 million pound price tag. And I don't think I pay that for Calvert-Lewin. I think he's a really, really good player. I think anything in like the 40 to 55 range, I think I'm jumping all over, because I think he's like you said, he's really, really good at holding up the ball, playing in. We are a team that crosses a lot. He's really good in the air. I think he'd be a really, really good fit. So I think it would be interesting, to say the least. I think there would be some Arsenal fans that are a little disappointed, mostly because of recency bias, but I think like a year ago, like almost every Arsenal fan would have taken Calvert-Lewin, mostly because he just like on paper had a bit of a down season, but it's been a lot of the injuries that's caused a lot of that. He's a really solid player. I think he'd be a great fit. It'll be interesting to see what direction the club goes when it comes to the striker position.
Now, Paul, I've got to say to you, I wore this for your benefit, the 89 shirt, just to poke Liverpool in the eye.
I enjoyed that game so much, Tom.
Getting back to Calvert-Lewin, you're going to have to sell him a good old price, aren't you? Because of these financial fair play rules. We'll get into the bones of that because I've got a really interesting piece. But you're going to have to make your money where you can. And I've got a feeling that you're going to have to out a few to get a few in.
Well, fortunately, we've got a number of players who come to the end of their highly lucrative, expensive contracts this summer. So, like Cenk Tosun, who we think costs us £15,000 every minute he's playing for Everton, will be leaving this summer. You've also got the likes of the player we're not allowed to talk about, Sigurdsson. His contract finishes this summer as well. And thank
God for that.
There are a number of other highly paid players whose contracts run out this summer. So I think we'll actually be in a better financial position for the start of next season than we were at the start of this season. So I'm not hugely concerned about the financial situation because I think it's improving. And obviously, staying in the Premier League, I think, as Mitch alluded to there, if we'd gone down, it would have been a financial disaster for Everton. And then we would have come under the auspices of the EFL financial rules, which are a lot more stringent in their implementation than the rules in the Premier League are. And going down to the Championship would have been a fire sale. Calvert-Lewin would have gone, Richarlison would have gone, Pickford would have gone. There would have been the key core of the team would have left. And then we'd be in a situation where we have to have this brand new stadium, and we just feared it like a Sunderland situation where we kind of crashed out the Championship in 2 seasons and ended up in League One. So you cannot understate the importance of Everton staying in the Premier League this season, and you cannot understate how much improved the financial situation will be with a number of these players leaving the club this summer.
Let's get back to the match. 56 minutes gone. Cedric, who I thought had a blinder of a game, hit a rocket for the third. Saka from a corner came out to Cedric and he just boshed it in. Mitch, your view? Did you have that? Were you still trying to get Dele Alli off at that point, or were you watching?
Yeah, no, we were. I had no idea what was happening. I was too busy yelling at Frank. No, it was.
Were you touching his ball patch? He's got a little ball patch, hasn't he? You should have just given that a rub.
Yeah. It was a really, really nice goal, and just not something you really expect to see from Cedric. However, I do remember like on his debut for Arsenal, he did like score one from outside the box, and then people immediately were like, "Oh, he's better than Bellerin." At the time, a couple of years ago, because Arsenal fans are reactive. But really, really nice goal. A player that I hope it's his last goal for the team, last appearance for the team. So if that is the case, great send off for him. And he finally gets his own celebration picture rather than photobombing everyone else's like he tends to do.
Yeah, he does do a bit of that. Up after that, what we had was Saka got a chance and he got all his feet and the angle was wrong and he got tied into a knot. Then Gabriel, who he's normally Mr. Header, isn't he? He's up there and nodding him in. 59 minutes, he got Cedric's scraps and put it in with his foot. What happened there, Mitch?
Yeah, I mean, so our third goal from a corner this match, definitely a positive throughout the entire season has been both us attacking and defensively from corners. Nicholas Drover's done a great job in coaching up our corners, both defensively and attacking, and it showed by scoring on 3 of them. So yeah, a little bit of a scrappy goal, but Gabriel got a foot on it and in the back of the net. Really, really great stuff.
I think, Paul, it also highlights, where you need to spend your money, doesn't it? At the back there, they're a little bit floppy and a little bit flappy. If you can't kind of get that under control, you're going to struggle, even if you hang on to Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah, I think the centre defence has been a problem all season. We've got Yerry Mina, who, when he plays, is a really good centre-back, but he's injured all the time. You can't guarantee on him playing more than 2 or 3 games.
It was that Kieran Tierney.
I like Kieran Tierney. I wish we.
I love him. I love him.
When Leighton Baines retired, most Everton fans wanted Kieran Tierney to sign for the club because we thought he'd be a natural fit. And of course, he's from the Isle of Man anyway, originally, so it's not too far from Merseyside anyway in terms of his place of birth. But he would have been an excellent signing for Everton. Really, but I'd watched him play for Celtic a number of times. I was hugely impressed with him. But going back to Everton's central defence problems, Yerry Mina, great defender when he's fit, but he's not ever fit, so that's not much use. The Michael Keane, Mason Holgate partnership has improved, but then it can only go one way because it's been so bad prior to that. What Lampard has done quite well, he's told the 2 of them, don't do any fancy footwork, don't try and pass the ball, win the tackle, win the header, clear it, and they've kind of responded to that because that's what they're good at. Ask them to do anything else above beyond that, they're hopeless. Although, having said that, I mean, Michael Keane, it always comes around like this. So you have a player who you slag off all season, and then the biggest game of the season, he delivers an absolutely stunning goal to bring us back into the game at 2-1 against Crystal Palace. So it's just very bizarre the way those things work. But yeah, I mean, we've not been able to defend corners all season. And yeah, you're right, the priority for Everton this summer, I would say, is to bring in 2 quality centre-backs. And I'm kind of looking at the teams that have gone down. I think Tarkowski from Burnley might be... Just
going to say him.
Yeah, he might be one we could possibly be looking at. And, whether there's somebody else we can bring in as well. But I think we definitely need two centre-backs. And what we definitely need as well is a right-back, because Seamus Coleman has been a fantastic servant to the club, but you cannot expect him to keep playing 38 league games a season. He hasn't got the legs for it anymore. So that's another position where we need to strengthen and bring in a quality replacements as well.
Well, here's the thing, Paul. We've got that relationship, haven't we? Us Arsenal guys and your guys. And Cedric's coming to the end of his tether at Arsenal. We could slip him across to you for a nice tidy sum. 30 million for Alex Iwobi.
Let's take some Alex Iwobi prices for Cedric. I mean, every single Arsenal fan rates him super highly. Everyone thinks he's worth 50 million. So 30 million is a discount, actually. So, I don't know.
Yeah, mention our names. You'll get a bit of extra discount.
I can see where you go. I can see where you go with this. You kind of think past Cedric for Calvert-Lewin, aren't you? You're trying to.
I mean, you know what? Yeah, we'll throw him in. We'll take some 40, 50 million.
Get me my solicitor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it's any concept, we've got such an appalling history of buying fullbacks. I mean, don't forget, we bought Cuco Martina from Southampton a few years ago to come in a fullback as well. So, yes, Cedric's upgrading him, actually. So, yeah, we'll see.
It's actually not a bad player, but it's the consistency. He'll play 2 good games and he'll have 2 indifferent games. But anyway, let's move on to the pick of the bunch for the goals from my point of view. Pepe out to Odegaard. That's probably Pepe's last match, isn't it? 82nd minute, and he just stroked the ball nonchalantly into the goal. What a cracker that guy is.
I love Martin Odegaard so much. Like,
son of Odin.
A joy to watch. Like, he had another dummy in the first half that was just like right in front of me, and it was just beautiful. And on the goal, just the calm touch away from pressure, and then just passing it in the goal, basically. Really, really nice finish. I mean, amazing season from him. Probably Arsenal signing of the season. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Just a fantastic player, and I think likely going to be our captain next season, which is very exciting.
That's good. It makes doing that jingle for the audio one worthwhile.
Yeah.
We did to Everton what Newcastle did to us. I mean, we were fairly dominant, but that's the thing with Arsenal. They just haven't been consistent for periods of the season. And all those silly little games, and I say that with respect, you know, the Southampton one we should have got involved with, Brighton and Crystal Palace. They're the ones that really hurt us.
The Everton game earlier in the season.
Yeah, that was, oh, God, we stunk the place out. Oh, we were awful. That's one of the low points. And that when United beat us as well, that soured my season.
I mean, but bizarrely enough, that Arsenal game for Everton was probably our best performance under Benitez as a manager. You know,
you guys were on like 8 straight losses before you played that game, and then we decided to let you have one.
That's right. That's right, mate. I'm surprised that we've been humiliated 4-1 at home in the derby by Liverpool. So no Everton fan went into that game with any feelings of optimism or confidence whatsoever. I mean, as I recall correctly, I mean, Arsenal were winning 1-0. We're quite in control of the game, but you can't let it slip in the second half. And I mean, it was just a wonder goal from Damari Gray that won the point for us. And I think that one of the sad consequences that's been Damari Gray's been trying to repeat that goal every game he's played for us since then.
Is he one of your mainstay players? Name a couple of players that you would actually hook onto apart from Calvert-Lewin. Who would you keep there?
Well, I think Jordan Pickford, no doubt. Yeah, I think Jordan Pickford's had his best season for Everton this year. He's kept us in a number of games. I think his double save against Chelsea a few weeks ago was absolutely stupendous. He's certainly a much more commanding presence in the penalty area than what he has been in the past. So he would be my player of the season. Richarlison, where he's played, he just makes such a difference to the side because he's so skillful. He runs at defenders, he creates chances. He's always going to unsettle defenders and create opportunities for us. So yeah, he's another one who we definitely need to keep hold of this summer. And then beyond that, Damari Gray has at times shown some really good glimpses of form. Andros Townsend was playing quite well until he got a season injury at Crystal Palace in the FA Cup. So there's been a few positives. And I have to say that the Ukrainian left back we brought in, Mykolenko, in January, took about 4 or 5 games to settle into the role. But since then, he's actually looked really, really confident, and he's brought a new attacking dimension to the left-hand side of the Everton formation, which is allowed us to create more opportunities as well. So he's also showing potential at the moment. And then I could probably give you a far longer list of who's let us down this season, but if I focus on the positive, they're the ones I focus on.
I think Frank's going to have to lean on the academy, isn't he? He's going to have to go sniffing around in the academy as well to try and balance the books. Have you got anyone coming through, Paul, that you know of?
Well, yes, we have. I mean, we've got 2 players out on loan at the moment. We've got Ellis Sims, who's been on loan at Hearts of Midlothian this season, who scored a number of goals for them, played the Scottish Cup final at the weekend. Looks a very attractive prospect. We've also got a forward called Nathan Broadhead, who's out on loan at Sunderland, who's been called up for the Wales squad for the Euro qualifiers. So we have got a couple of decent players out on loan at different clubs at the moment. And of course, got a lad called Lewis Dobbin, who's been on the bench a couple of times this season as well, who's who looks a bit of a prospect. So yeah, I think, and as you know from Arsenal, there's a difference between being a prospect for the academy and breaking into the first team. It is a huge step. I always think it's more difficult for a young prospect to break into a team that's struggling than it is into a team that's doing well. So yeah, we have got some prospects, but we've been in this situation before with a number of prospects who haven't quite progressed their career. I think you look at our current squad. John Joe Kenny is an obvious example of that. This was a guy who was in the England under-20s World Cup winning team, looked like he had a future at Everton, and it just never ever developed. For what reason? So yeah, I think now from looking at Arsenal, bringing the academy players to me seems to be the sensible way forward, combined with some judicious signings. And I think that's the way Everton has to go, because we've been far too inclined to solve a problem by paying mega bucks and giving a 7-year contract to somebody who's not made another Premier League club. Whereas the best approach would have been, hang on, we've got a young prospect here, send him out on loan, bring him back, see what he can do. Sorry, Tom, just like you did with Smith Rowe, I remember watching Smith Rowe about 3 seasons ago, Goodison Park, and me and my son were going, this guy's got talent, this guy looks the part, and you sent out on loan to Huddersfield, and he's come back a much improved player. And that's maybe the type of route that we should be considering for some of our young players.
Yeah, I think that's the way that Arsenal are looking at it now. They've suddenly got a blueprint. I mean, we'll talk about the clubs and the similarities between the pair. Let's just finish that match off with a few stats. Right, we've got shots. Arsenal 26, Everton 6. Shots on target 9 for Arsenal, 2 for Everton. 74% possession for the Gunners, 26% for the Toffees. Passes 6-4, 7 for Arsenal, 2, 3, 4 for Everton. That kind of tells its own story in a way, doesn't it, really? Right, let's do the old elephant in the room then. Back at Crystal Palace, a certain Patrick Vieira walks across the pitch. What's your opinion about what happened there? I mean, okay, you can't stop fans celebrating. It doesn't matter if you've got 1,000 stewards there. You're not going to keep them there. And 1 million policemen. They're going to get through, aren't they? They're going to get there. But what happened after that? We'll talk about it. What did you think of it initially, Paul?
Well, it shouldn't happen. It's a quite simple thing, and as a fan of Everton, I'm embarrassed that happened at our club. And I'm sure the genuine Man City fans were embarrassed by what happened in their game on Sunday with Robin Olsen being attacked. So yeah, it's a worrying trend in football at the moment. It's not quite a throwback to the dark days of the 80s, which I remember vividly. But yeah, it's a worrying development at the moment. Yeah, I mean, a couple of things kind of occurred to me about the Vieira thing. Was one, I mean, Everton should have put procedure in place for the end of the game, because they would have known that Everton won there's going to be a pitch invasion. So you kind of think beforehand, aren't the stewards like to say, like, we head straight for the opposition team, the opposition players, we make sure that, that they have an escort, we make sure we get them off the pitch, we make sure they say, and it just seems to me that the stewards were far too concerned with joining in the celebrations than what they were about actually doing the job to look after opposition players. And it added a hint of sourness to what had been a joyous occasion. I felt really sorry for Vieira, because it's an awful situation to be in. But I've read a piece by Oliver Holt at the weekend. I thought you made a really good point. He said, particularly during COVID, people become so used to like interacting on laptops and phones and shouting abuse to each other. There's no consequence. And this guy seemed genuinely shocked that you give a person a load of abuse, and the guy turns out, oh, actually for doing it, because that is what would normally happen in real life. I think some people have kind of forgotten, that's how things work. And I mean, I watched the end of the Man City game, and there was one scene where there was a girl on top of the broken crossbar, where their dad taking a picture of her to put on Instagram to get more likes, and you're there like, oh, well, seriously, guys, is that what you're doing that for? Is that why you're putting your daughter's safety at risk by getting that photograph? So yeah, I think that there is a bigger issue here, but both football-wise and society-wise. But yeah, but going back to what you said, Vieira should never been put in that situation. And what wasn't picked up as well afterwards, that about 3 or 4 Everton fans actually surrounded him and got him off the pitch after that as well. So no credit to those.
I was just going to add that.
Yeah, that's
they
right.
did a superb job getting him off there, and credit to them.
They did. Yeah, that's right, Tom. Yeah, but you're right. It shouldn't have happened. I'm embarrassed that it has happened. And there's no antipathy between Everton and Crystal Palace. There's no history of aggression between the two sides, so it shouldn't have happened. But I think it's just it becomes the norm that you invade the pitch every time, at the end of the season, then we need to look at that.
What worries me is that we're going to get these monstrous cages up there, and it fills me with dread, even though there are seats now and they're not standing. But it brings back so many memories of '89 and Hillsborough. We don't really want to go down that route, and it seems to be fashionable. One set of fans do something, and it is a very small minority, isn't it, Mitch?
Yeah.
It's we've got them in our fan base, absolute pillocks. We haven't done anything like that yet. But who's to say? What measures can we take, Mitch, to stop these occurring? People are saying extra police, extra stewards, and that the FA fits the bill. I just don't see it making that much difference.
I don't know. I think there's just some things you can't really control in these kind of situations. Like, I mean, like, I'm from the US, so I'm used to like college football where like you get a big upset, you're storming the field. Like I go to the University of Nebraska, we almost beat Michigan at home last year, and I was like antsy to storm the field. Like I was going to storm the field, and then we didn't win. Like the guy I was sitting next to at the game was like talking to the steward. He's like, "Hey, just so you know, if Tottenham lose and we win, like I'm storming the field." And he's like, "I won't stop you." Like I feel like there's like a certain passion element to like wanting to do that. And I don't think that in itself, is a bad thing if like a bunch of fans storm the field. It's, however, when you have the situations like what happened to Patrick Vieira, and the consequences of that, which, I mean, when it comes to that, Jimmy Vardy once said, "Chat shit, get banged." And I think that's what happened. And fair. I mean, if you're going to go up in the other manager's face and start like yelling like rude shit at him, especially if it's Patrick Vieira, expect to get kicked. Like if you're doing that to Alan Pardew, you're not going to expect anything. But like you're going to go and do that to Patrick Vieira and not expect like something. Like really, one of like the nastiest Premier League players of all time with like that kind of reputation.
He
like,
is a mountain of a man, isn't he? I mean,
yeah.
And when this guy went up and got in his face and then he got kicked over, there were a few come towards Patrick Vieira, another couple at least. One gave him a shove on the chest, and there was one behind him. And Vieira didn't back down at all. It's not a Patrick Vieira type of thing, is it?
Of course not.
So, I don't know whether he drunk too much, this guy, when he thought, I know it's a good idea to have a go at Patrick Vieira. It just didn't make any sense to me at all. But, there's a spate of it going around. We need to get rid of it. We need to lock these suckers up and give them big fines. Never mind about, we'll try and find them and it's a bit of a struggle. Someone knows them somewhere. Someone saw them do it. Dob them in, and let's clear the grounds out of all this foul stench and rubbish, because we don't want it associated with football. Right, let's just quickly go back a little bit to the match. Your man of the match, Mitch, who was it?
I mean, the official Arsenal account decided that it was El Neni, and I feel like that's just attached to the fact that he's about to get a one-year deal. I don't know. I feel like everyone played pretty well. There wasn't any one player that I felt like when you score 5 goals, usually you have like a standout player. You have one guy that like was a part of everything. I think I'll give it to Martinelli. He technically assisted on Nketiah's goal and then scored the penalty. Thought he had a good game. But I feel like there's no really wrong answers. I thought Odegaard played great. Obviously, El Neni.
What's happened to Paul? He looks like he's on the Blair Witch Project. Totally agree with you.
All around. So
they were my standouts. You had Odegaard with his silky skills. You had Gabriel Martinelli doing his stuff. I think that's the best he's looked for a little bit there. He looked really up for it, very aggressive, very motivated. But I went with Odegaard. Just some of the touches that he does. He's such a sublime player. He's a super footballer. Very quick. I mean, his brain just clicks through the gears and his feet follow suit. Are you impressed by him at all, Paul?
Yeah. Hugely impressed with him. I think he's been an excellent acquisition for Arsenal. I was quite jealous he managed to entice him, initially on loan, and then he managed to sign him on a contract, because he's obviously had massive potential when Real Madrid signed him, and sometimes some of these young tyros don't quite actually deliver when they make the moves to the big club, and it can set them back. So I think him moving to Arsenal, A, has worked out perfectly for Arsenal, but B, I think it's worked out better for him as well. And I hadn't realised from what Mitch said before that there's some talk of him being captain next season, and I think that would be a really a bit of a statement from the club, and that would be a fabulous point, because every time I watch him, I think he uses class, he uses confidence, he can use the ball well, he can score goals. I know for some of his age, I don't think he's quite reached the top level yet. I'm sure, within 1 or 2 years there, he's going to do that. I'm sure Arteta, who's kind of, played in that midfield role as well, then knows how to bring the best out of him. So yeah, I think he's been an excellent signing for Arsenal, and he's definitely help push Arsenal towards the Champions League challenge this season. I think that Odegaard in the team, I don't think you're pushing for top 4 place.
I think I'm going to lay down a marker here. I'm going to look into the future. Obviously, you guys out there, listen to this. We'll play it back if I'm right. But I think he's going to have a stellar season next season. I think next season is the season he cracks it. Sort of Kevin De Bruyne style. That's where we're going with this guy. Fantastic player. Love everything he does. Sorry, Paul, just going to finish off 2 Arsenal bits and then we'll be back to Everton. Your player of the season that's been bought in recently, who would you go for, Mitch? The
Saka
best
easily. On player of the season?
So player of the season. Bought in.
Signing of the season, Martin Odegaard.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
I love Mr. Odegaard. He's God bless him. But I'm going to go with Takahiro Tomiyasu.
If Tomiyasu wasn't injured, I think he would have it.
Yeah,
but
just
like
superb.
Because of his injury, I think it sets him back. But I think Odegaard was our best player consistently of the 6 that we signed.
Who disappointed you the most?
Just in general.
Yeah.
Pepe, easily Nicolas Pepe. I had high hopes for him this season. He ended last season on a pretty high note, scoring some nice goals at the end of the season. He looked confident, looked pretty good, and just was terrible. Like I don't think there's other ways to put it. Like he had some decent moments, but just a frustrating player. Has a hard time holding on to the ball, which is just beyond frustrating. He had some good moments.
Leaves it behind, doesn't he? He'd be ideal for
him. Yeah, we don't win that Wolves game without him. We don't win that Wolves game without him. But I anticipated a big jump up season to this was very much a make or break year for Pepe, and he broke. So I think we'll move on in the summer. We have to cut our losses on our record signing, which is unfortunate, because I wrote a piece on him that just was released on Pain in the Arsenal today. Just kind of it's time for Arsenal to cut our losses on him. And I was kind of looking at his statistics with Lille and stuff like that. He scored 22 goals in his last season with Lille and scored 13 before that. His highest goal tally with Arsenal was 11 in his second season. I think he scored 5 in the first and 11 in his second season. The thing is, his expected goals was around the same his entire career. The biggest difference between his last year at Lille and his entire season, 3 seasons at Arsenal, is that he did not take penalties. 13 of his 22 goals in that season were from open play. So it was like a 10 to 15 goal season kind of player, and he's played like that. However, you don't pay 72 million pounds for that player. And also he is unbelievably one-footed. That makes him so predictable. And it just baffles me of what happened. I would love to have been a fly on the wall, because Raul lost his job over this transfer. There was sketchy shit happening with this transfer. And I would love to know.
I would imagine Mr. Raul would be very well out of it.
What's going on with this transfer, because it just does not add up. This is not any team that did legit scouting into his statistics, how he plays, his skills with both feet, would know that this isn't a 72 million pound player. So why the hell did we spend that much on him? Because if we bought Pepe for 30 million pounds, we'd be having a totally different conversation about him right now. But he would not be a flop. He would be very successful so far. He's scoring some nice goals. You're like, oh damn, we only paid 30 million for Pepe. Wow, he's playing great. He's frustrating sometimes, but damn, he's a good player. But instead, because he's a record signing, there's so much more expectations, and he was never going to live up to it based on his history. And so he was the biggest disappointment for me, because I expected a big jump up this season, and that just did not happen.
I think the going rate for him, Paul, was 35 million, and there was add-ons, there was agents, and there was Raoul's little slice of the cake.
I know that feeling well.
Yeah, we normally do it to you, don't we?
Yeah, you do. Arovia Walcott being prime examples.
Mitch, the last one for the Arsenal bit is, what was your goal of the season for Arsenal?
Martinelli against Newcastle, easily.
Yeah.
I love that goal so much. I love that goal so much.
Takahiro Tomiyasu down the right.
Another one was, I loved Smith Rowe versus Leeds. I loved Odegaard put a really nice ball, just splitting the defenders, and then Smith Rowe hits it on a half volley, and it's a really great goal from both of them. We scored some nice goals this season. I mean, Lacazette won goal of the month for the Premier League for a really, really nice team goal that we had against Southampton earlier in the season. So we scored some nice goals. We just got to work
dreaming,
on,
sir. Lacazette scoring goals.
We just got to work on the volume of the goals, unfortunately. So just got to work on the volume of the goals next season.
Paul, who was your player of the season for Everton?
Yeah, I think
who was the top Toffee?
Yeah, without doubt, Jordan Pickford. He's his performances this season have been the difference between us, staying up and going down. I think a close second could possibly be Richarlison, because his goals have also been vital in keeping the team up as well. And I think they would be my top two, definitely. And if I was asked, similar to what you've asked Mitch there about Everton's goal of the season, I never thought I'd be saying this, but I have to say that, Alex Iwobi's goal in our 1-0 win against Newcastle when we were down to 10 men in the 7th minute of injury time, when he played a 1-2 with Calvert-Lewin and then just glided the ball past the Newcastle goalkeeper, was probably the most important and the best goal I've seen at Goodison this season.
He's actually got a lot of goals in him, but sometimes he comes across as a bit, a bit laid back, doesn't really sort of push on. But he is a good player, Iwobi. He just didn't crack it at Arsenal. We had an abundance of similar players, I suppose. Right, let's get on to this financial fair play malarkey. I've got to ask you about it, because there's so much going on. Right, it says the Merseyside club have recorded losses of 371.8 million over the last 3 years, 266.8 million more than the maximum permissible of the amount of 105 million. As we know, Everton decided to avoid relegation prior to the final day after a dramatic 3-2 win over Crystal Palace. Here's the interesting bit. Sky Sports dropped a live TV development on Saturday afternoon, revealing that Leeds have written another letter alongside Burnley. They've asked the Premier League to ensure that Everton keep all their emails and data related to their business activities. That's quite unusual, isn't it? And it's regardless, this was before they knew who was going down. So it's quite, you've got a minefield there, haven't you, Paul?
Well, yes and no. I mean, as I understand this, I'm not claiming to be a financial expert or have a degree in accounting or anything here. The dispute by Burnley and Leeds is against the Premier League, not against Everton. It's against the Premier League for not enforcing their own profit and sustainability regulations. So any outcome there would be against the Premier League, not against Everton. So that's my understanding of the situation.
Dodge a bullet.
Well, I mean, the non-penalty case against Everton, it's not like the West Ham situation, the Carlos Tevez situation a few seasons ago, where Sheffield United brought out an action against West Ham for contravening transfer regulations. So it's a dispute between Burnley and Leeds and the Premier League. I mean, there might well be a consequence of financially because of that, but I think the difference the Premier League has, and once again, I don't claim for 1 second to be a financial expert here. I think the difference the Premier League has is that from what I've read from Everton's statements, is all the way through they've worked in tandem with the Premier League to ensure they remain within the financial guidelines, within the financial limitations that have been imposed by the Premier League. Now, all the information coming out of the club indicates that they feel that they have done everything they were supposed to have done. And if there had been any concerns that the Premier League would have intervened at an earlier stage rather than coming up now at the end of the season, it will be quite interesting to see what Leeds United's stance is after they've stayed up, whether they are still as vociferous in terms of trying to keep pushing matters forward. But as I said at the start, Tom, I don't claim to have inside financial knowledge, but clubs employ a whole legion of financial experts to make sure they stay within the guidelines of the competition that they're competing in. So I'm not overly concerned. Most Everton fans are really not overly concerned. And as I said at the start, it's a dispute between the Premier League and Burnley and Leeds regarding the enforcement of their regulations. So I don't see it being directly impacting upon Everton's status as a Premier League club. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Smacks a bit sour grapes, doesn't it? These grapes are a bit sour. Don't really want those. Mitch, what's our expectations for next season? What are you looking forward to the most? 3 months off, and then we're back.
I have high expectations for this team next season. I predicted us to get 6th this season, and we exceeded my expectations. And missing out on top 4 was disappointing, but not a failure of a season. If we miss out on top 4, if we miss out on Champions League, I'll say, if we miss out on Champions League next season, it will be a failure of a season. I have very high expectations next season. We were good enough throughout the season, and our first 11, when healthy, is the 3rd best team in the league. We need to bring in quality players during the summer, bring in quality depth, and we're a good team. We need to make a run in the Europa League, and my expectation is we need to be in the conversation to win it. We were in the conversation to win it 2 years ago, and we have a better team now than we did 2 years ago. So I think we absolutely need to make a run in that and last longer in the cup competitions, in the domestic cup competitions than we did this year. So I'm expecting us to play a lot more matches next season, and I'm expecting us to be a lot more comfortable in a potential top 4 race, with less chance of implosion. I think we will get better. I think Spurs will get better. I think everyone around us is getting better. The challenge is only going to get harder and harder in every single position in the Premier League. It's going to be more. I will say I think making Champions League now is probably more of an accomplishment than it was when Wenger was manager. I think the league is tougher than it ever has been, and I think that's something that a lot of fans need to realize is how hard it is to make Champions League. John will hate me saying this, but I think it's really difficult.
Good old John.
It's really difficult to achieve what was seen as the norm, 5, maybe even 10, even 5 years ago, in the Premier League. We're talking about a big 6 right now. We're going to be talking about a big 7 very soon because Newcastle have completely skipped the make boneheaded decisions part of getting money. And I anticipate in the next couple of years, they'll be right up there with us competing for European spots. Hell, even next season, I think they're a serious contender for Europa League spots. But I have really, really high expectations for this Arsenal team. And I mean, obviously not title hopes. I'm not deluded, but I think hopefully some sort of trophy and secure in Champions League football.
I think how much money you got on you, Mitch? We're going to have a whip round because poor old Paul, he's got no electricity down there. I don't know what's going on.
Can I put the light on?
Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can.
Give me some.
All friends here.
We've been going for so long, lights have gone out.
Yeah, I know. It's terrible, isn't it? And I thought you had someone behind the curtain as well, sort of tied up in a chair because it kept sort of
Like
puffing forwards. Question goes to you as well, Paul. What's your expectations for next year, apart from not being like this year?
Yeah, well, I think I think Mitch has outlined there quite well that how difficult it is to get the Champions League, but also how difficult it is to improve season on season from where you finished the previous season. So I think the expectation of Everton fans it's got to be upwards. I think I mentioned at the start of the program that the mid-table security might be a target for us this season compared to the trauma we've had to put up with the season that's just elapsed. I also believe as well, I mean, most Everton fans are desperate for some sort of cup run, whether it be the League Cup or the FA Cup. I mean, it's been 27 years now since we've won a trophy. We never won the League Cup. I think if we were to win the League Cup, that would be a statement that the club is moving in the right direction. So, but my view, my expectation for next season is dependent on a number of factors. I think the key one being that we keep our best players over the summer, and we attract some better quality, experience, and young players to add to depth to the squad. But we, as a minimum, I think we have to look at finishing as close to the top half as possible. We also have to combine that with a serious effort. And by that, I mean not fielding an understrength team in the early rounds of the League Cup. I mean, take the competition seriously and give the fans a day out in London at Wembley. Give us something to look forward to.
Brilliant. Guys, we've got a special coming up. We're going to be doing a review of the Premier League season. So that'll be interesting for you guys out there. And may I just say to the podcast family out there, thanks ever so much for all your support, all your emails, all the things that you do to keep us going. It's been our first season, full season of doing this, and it's been a hoot. Depending on the results, obviously, it hasn't been a hoot. Sometimes it's been a real chore. But guys, thanks ever so much for coming on. And we've got one coming up fairly soon. I'll promote that online and stuff. But Paul, thank you very much. Good luck with the book, and don't be a stranger. Please come back.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me on the show again. It's been a pleasure chatting to you. Love listening to Mitch's insights as well about Arsenal and giving the stateside younger perspective on it as well. It's always good to listen to alternative interpretation of how the team's doing. And I love all the background, the stats and things like that to help me to understand the game far better. So yeah, I always love being on the show, Tom. It's a fantastic show. I think you discuss football in such a sensible, rational and understandable way. And I wish the podcast every success in the future.
Thanks very much, mate. Mitch, we globe. I can't even talk now. Look, I'm so excited. So excited it's the end of the season. Mitch, where are you globe trotting to next?
I'm
he's
going
gone
back to the US tomorrow. So my globe trotting is over.
Is it? You've let the side down now. I mean, now the season's over. You stop trotting around. Jay, we'll give Jay a mention. Silent Dave, Jay's not with us this week. I think he's away on holiday somewhere. And Silent Dave is milling around drinking me out of 1664. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for your company. Take care.